Welcome to Let's Go Outside, a podcast bringing moms together to chat about the raw, unfiltered reality of doing the exploring we love after having kids. No matter your comfort level of adventuring with the little ones, this is a space to have honest conversations about the real struggles of getting out the door with the kiddos. I'm Danica, a mama living in a small mountain town who's totally obsessed with healthy food and taking my kids outside every single day. I professionally guided backpacking trips in the Canadian Rockies, and I'm certified as a Leave No Trace instructor. On the show, you'll hear real experiences from other moms, plus tips on gear, trail snacks, and the best practices in the wilderness. Whether it's hiking, camping, backpacking, skiing, or traveling the world you want to do more of, this is your place to learn, find encouragement, and strip away any comparison. Come embrace both motherhood and the outdoors. Stick around. This is your place. Welcome to the Outdoor Mom Club. Welcome to Let's Go Outside podcast today. Today I have Heather Ellison. She was raised in Northern California, but has called Maui home for 20 years now. She and her husband traveled the world for 8 years before deciding to start a family. 3 boys later, they keep their love for traveling the world and adventure alive by sharing it while they call Maui home. So welcome, Heather, to the show today.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me, Danica. I'm so happy to be here.
Would you start off by telling us who's in your family, a little bit about maybe where you live in Hawaii, how close you are to the ocean, and what your journey into traveling and adventure looked like?
All right. Well, I have 3 boys, blessed with boys, 9, 7, and 5 years old. We live up in Kula, Hawaii, Maui up here, and it is actually about 3,000 feet in elevation. So we actually live in a cooler climate than some may think. It gets down to about 40 degrees in winter right now in our house. So we have a fireplace, but we also get to run down to the beach. Like after school, it's like a 20-minute drive. So, yeah, I've been on here for about 20 years now. I mean, my love for travel started, I want to say, all the way back in high school. I would take the Greyhound bus to go see one of my really good friends from Sacramento to Reno. Looking back, I kind of can't believe I was able to do that. But this kind of lust for other places and other things started, I think, quite young. And then when I met my husband in 2006, we both kind of shared the same love of travel. When we met was in Lahaina town on Maui. I was already living here. He's from here. He grew up here, and we met at a party, and I had just got back from Fiji for a couple months, and he had just graduated college in Southern California, but had studied abroad in Spain and lived in Greece and did the whole Europe backpacking thing. So we connected immediately on sort of travel. So travel's always been there, still there, and traveled for 8 years. And in that 8 years, got engaged, got married here on Maui. And then the kiddos came along. So here we are.
Wow. During that 8 years, did you guys have a home base?
So it was always Maui, pretty much always Maui. One little stunt, I wanted to move home to Northern California for a hot minute. So we moved to Lake Tahoe. But that particular year, some may remember that lived in Tahoe, there was a blizzard or a snowstorm beginning of June, and then a blizzard by Labor Day. So we moved there that summer, and we were like, let's go back to Maui. So we only lasted 4 or 5 months on the mainland that year, trying to move to the mainland, and then we came back. So always calling Maui home. My husband worked in the tourism industry, so seasonal work. And then I do hair and makeup for weddings. So we had kind of full flexibility to okay, let's go to Southeast Asia for 4 months. Let's go to Africa for 3 months. Let's go to our honeymoon was in South America for 4 months. So it was never a week trip. It was always these very extreme, extended trips.
I love that.
Yeah. So that was really always us. And then kids came.
That's amazing. The seasonal work is really incredible. That's kind of how we are able to travel now too. My husband has a really heavy summer job and then slow off season. And it's just, if you can kind of
push through,
to like kind of live off your seasonal income or whatever it looks like, it's just amazing. To get more
Yeah.
than 4 weeks of vacation or to be able to work remote, part of it is awesome.
Yeah. No, I kind of would, I'll encourage my boys one day, especially in their 20s, to just like work, be a hard worker, hands down. I think you'll always get a job if you are just show up and you're kind and you're positive and you do the work and you work really hard, and you'll always have a job. And then if you want to take off and travel. So that was kind of our mindset for so many years. And honestly, it's still kind of today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow we're still making that work.
I know. It's your priority, right? That's kind of, it's in the back of your mind, but also it's in the forefront of your mind for some seasons. Yeah. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
My husband lived the year of thirds. He always says before we got married, where he worked for 4 months, volunteered for 4 months, and then traveled for 4 months. And has carried that now into our marriage. And now with kids, we're like almost doing that. It's a little bit different, but he's working for 8 months and then he works remotely for like the other part of it. But yeah, it's so cool, the different ways you can do it.
Yeah, no, you kind of got to get creative when the kiddos come along. But I think it's a good balance sometimes too, to like work home, just stay at home and then go kind of just, if you can, if not everybody can find that kind of work.
Yeah.
But if you can kind of create your life like that, it's pretty incredible for sure.
Yeah. So what did it look like when the kids were born? How soon did you guys get back? Your first son was born. Did you guys take him right away on a trip or did you wait a while? What did that look like?
So my little guy, my first one, Tanner, he came along right after we went to Africa for a couple months and then we came home, and that's when I knew I wanted to start a family. So he was very much planned and he was still in my womb, if you will. And decided cost of living on Maui is obviously quite high. And I was a little nervous having a baby, and my sister living out in North Carolina. So we kind of packed up our bags when I was only 7 months pregnant. Okay. And we actually flew to California and we drove completely cross country, hitting up all these national parks when I was like 7.5 months pregnant. Hadn't even met my doctor. Whoever was going to deliver was going to deliver. And so we got there, we found a rental, and I think, after like 2 months, I had him. And I think he was like 6 weeks old, and we already were like itching, and we ended up down in, Savannah, Georgia, on a little like weekend trip. That was my first, like, let's go road trip, if you will, which is still, God, Savannah, I think it's like 4 or 5 hours from Asheville at the time. So that was our first little like road trip. So I would say more like these little mini road trips when he was less than 5 months old were happening, and those were going quite well. So it didn't take long for we just kind of expanded it, right? You start really small and then you just kind of like, well, what else could we do? Well, that went well. So what else could we do? And then Kyle's dad out here in Maui, like I said, he's from here, had like an ohana, as we call it, which is like an in-law unit open for us to come stay for the winter for a little while. So we actually flew out here when he was like 6 months old, and we stayed for, I think we even had his first birthday out here. So that would have been 6 months, I guess. We stayed out here in Maui, went back to Asheville for that summer, and then we realized we wanted to come back to Maui. So we flew all the way back. But during that time when we were here, my husband is a travel writer, so he got a gig with Hawaiian Airlines and their magazine called Hana Ho, and he had an opportunity to go to New Zealand for an article. So when he was 11 months old, we went and road tripped. They call it the Pacific. They have actually a Pacific Coast Highway in New Zealand as well. Their version of their Highway 1, kind of like California. So he did an article on that, and that was our first international trip with him when he was 11 months old. And it went well, but it was definitely like, oh, wow, this is different, because we had already done New Zealand. We stayed in New Zealand for 3 months as a couple, and we bought our own van, and we did the van life, New Zealand van life thing there. And then we thought we could do it again with him, and it went well, but 11-month-old likes to crawl and likes to put rocks in their mouth. And now you're staying in these like campgrounds with cars everywhere with 11-month-old that's like kind of trying to walk, crawl everywhere. And then like he wanted to sleep with us, and the way the bed was set up, he could fall off. Like all these logistics that were just like, I didn't even think about that. And so we ended up bailing on the van and getting a couple Airbnbs mid-trip because I'm like, I just want him to be able to crawl like inside a home and not worry about that. So there was a lot of like adjusting, but it was still just as magical to like be in New Zealand and to be there with him. But I would say there's definitely adjustments being made after having kids and traveling, but you can still do it.
Yeah. And you don't really know, like you can't really foresee, even as much as we would try and think about all those things and foresee it all before going on a trip with a kid, you don't really know.
No, you don't. Like I didn't even think, I don't know why. I thought it would be fine, him crawling around in like the grass, but there were so many places that we went there where it was like gravel rock. And like he was the kid that was kind of putting things in his mouth at the time. So I was just like, just not relaxed as a mom at that time. The Airbnbs were, so in hindsight, I'm like, oh wow, this trip would have been different if we would have just stayed in little Airbnbs this whole time.
Totally.
Then he could have crawled around. But then again, you're checking an Airbnb constantly, like what's around here that he can get into or break or something. So 11 months was
that crawling stage
yeah, that crawling stage is kind of next level for sure. Especially as a new mom, you're like, oh my God, what's this? So
I think the perfect stage is like 5 months. I think that's so fun.
No,
I don't
me
know
too.
if you found that with your next kids.
I did. We traveled more. I was a lot more confident with the next two, but we did travel when my third one was 3 months old from Maui all the way to Ireland. And to me, he was so easy because he slept all the time. So same thing, that 5 months, they're not moving and shaking too much, but you know, they're sleeping and definitely easier for sure.
Totally. Yes. It's so trial and error. Like I took when Clay was born, he was 6 weeks old and I was like, okay, he's healthy. Let's book some tickets. And we booked it to Cuba, but it was a bit too early for us because the sand was blowing in his face and I didn't even expect just, like beach wind. I was just like, I don't know how to keep it out of a newborn's eyes. And so we would take turns going to the beach with our older son. But there's just like things that you're like, okay, we're going to shift. I'm still happy to be here. But like, this is a bit frustrating.
Yeah. And then the mom guilt comes in like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that or whatever. But they're fine.
Well, my oldest talks about Cuba constantly still. So I know.
That's awesome. Cuba's hard to get into, no? Is that when it was open then?
We're from Canada.
Oh, you're Canada. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I know.
You got that magic passport. Yes.
I know. We did meet a couple Americans there and they were like, there's a few things you have to do.
Yeah, you have to like go through another country or something.
Yeah, or there's like one airport that flies in and bring cash only. And yeah, there's a few things you have to do.
Right.
Well, I would love to talk with you more about the benefits of taking the kids along and what you have experienced in traveling.
Well, the interesting part about it is you don't always necessarily see it while you're traveling. We find it when they come home and you catch them talking about it to somebody or a teacher, or they remember something from your trip. Those are actually the more parts that I'm like, there's something in there, because they seem to be a little more knowledgeable possibly about other cultures and other people and other things. So there's that part of it that I love, just the straight up learning and then them processing what they saw or what they heard or what happened, and then seeing them talk to somebody else about it in a good light or in an educated light, which is awesome. And then there's the challenging part of like having to push through things. Like we've done hikes that can be challenging probably for an adult and has been challenging for them, and seeing them push through and giving them confidence in their ability to be able to do certain things and to be able to kind of sleep anywhere and to be able to be in a stressful situation and watch their parents figure it out. Because they're watching you constantly and how you react and how you're handling things and how you're treating others. Not that you can't necessarily get that on a daily basis, just in life in your own town or your own place. So, but obviously it amplifies it when you're outside your comfort zone. And so not only the education of what they're seeing and feeling and the open-mindedness of other humans and the other way of life. My older son does get uncomfortable sometimes when we're in developing countries and he sees how people live, but it also like makes him, I feel like, not want as much or not maybe complain as much. I don't know, like, because he saw it with his own eyes. Again, not that you can't see kind of that in the US or Canada, but it's probably, again, more amplified when you are in other developing countries. So I also think like we'll see later in life what they become and what they feel. I think it can only be good. I hope it can only be good of all the traveling that they've done and everything they've kind of seen. I hope that they don't necessarily need to grow up and be little travelers, but I pray that they grow up and like are just open-minded, and the kindness that it can bring into your heart, and their ability to kind of work through maybe struggles or situations or confidence to climb that mountain, or to, be adventurous, not be afraid to try new things kind of stuff. So I think there's benefits for sure. I do. I can only imagine it's helping them, not hurting them, but time will tell for sure.
Yeah. So when you're maybe going somewhere where you're like, this is going to be poorer, or there's going to be more poverty here, do you talk that through with them before you go, or does it come up and then do you talk about it afterwards, or is it kind of like they are used to it and they've seen it before? Is there anything that that comes to mind?
Gosh, I mean, we spent 2 months in Baja, driving down the Baja Peninsula. So I think that was their first introduction to like, some heavy areas. So I don't think I necessarily prepared them for it. It just, that's how those people live. And then they would point and they'd be like, they were processing it like, wow, they're living in that shed or that just under on the ground or whatnot. I think they were just processing it all. And I didn't try to make it like that big of a deal. It was more just like, yeah, this is how a lot of people live, like a lot. Like, it's that roof that we provide at home. It's pretty awesome that you get to have a roof, like, in a comfortable house and a heated house or a cooled house or whatever. I don't make it this grand thing. Yeah. I don't want to. I just want it to be like, yeah, but I also don't like shove it in their face kind of a thing. It just is what it is. And I just like to walk up to that person selling something on the street and just kindness is probably our biggest motto when we're traveling, and a little bit of that. Yeah. Like especially as they get older, they see it more. I think littles under 5, they don't even, it's nothing. Gosh, even under 7, I think kids just want to play and kids want to be kids. Like when we were in Belize, my kids didn't see the house. They saw the kids with the toys and wanted to play with them. I don't even think they were really processing what house the kid was living in personally. No.
Which I think is so cool right there. I think that's a benefit of like, as adults, we might even like put this barrier or this filter on it, but it's like, we are humans. We're both humans. We're just doing life together, and it looks differently for both of us. But the kids, they just, they don't even see it. They don't necessarily see it. They really don't. They just saw the kid with the awesome toy and was like, I want to play with that. Or he saw the boys playing soccer. And we do that a lot when we're traveling. We let them go play soccer with any local families or play with their playing, and they just jump right in. Language barrier, they don't care. They don't see it like I don't think they see it like we see it per se, which is kind of a beautiful thing. What's nice about traveling. Yeah. One of those things that's, it's like kind of a benefit for us traveling with the kids, like just the beauty that they bring in those moments and the connection that they just, just go up and talk to anyone. And I love that because it also breaks down barriers for us as adults.
Absolutely.
And we, I don't know, don't even think about, but just maybe happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
Cool. So you mostly travel outside a resort. Is there any moments where going on a day-to-day itinerary stuff where it's you just see how it comes? Is there anything that's been like, this is really overwhelming? How are we going to figure this out? Or maybe the unexpected comes up. Can you think of a situation where stuff came up and how you all responded as a family, and maybe encouragement to other people when we're thinking about worst case scenarios?
Okay, so that comes from, and we say this before, like, if you didn't travel before kids, yes, traveling after you have them is going to seem overwhelming. You are not going to be comfortable in a situation when things don't go right. If you are that family that likes things routine and all the things and they know what to expect, that's like a personality thing. So I have been practicing that as my own person for pre-kids. So then when it comes about with them, they already know, like, I mean, it's happened just in Japan. Like we got off, we thought that going from one airport to the other was going to be an easy little train ride, and that was going to be that. Well, no, we got there, and I don't know if you've ever tried to do the Japan Tokyo train system, but it can be extremely confusing. And if you get on the wrong train, whew. And so that happened to us recently. Got on, they sometimes the English, you know, we don't speak Japanese, so it was a little challenging on like which one we should get on. And we ended up obviously on the wrong run. And my husband was all up in arms, of course, because he's like, we should have just waited 2 hours for the direct one. I was trying to get creative. I didn't want to wait 2 hours because we just flown 9 hours and I just wanted to get to our airport hotel at the other airport. And super stressful. Obviously, 2 parents tired over it, just want to get there. And like your brain goes to like, absolutely goes to like, this just is not fun. And you just have, then me and my husband, because we've traveled together for 8 years before, we are used to like figuring it out, working together, figuring out the solution. So we try to get on it pretty quick. But yes, something that was supposed to take an hour, I think it took us like 4 hours with tired kids, with all of our luggage and all the things. And, you know, and even though we've traveled for 20 years now, we still have epic travel fails, we call them, that we're just like, wow. And we call ourselves travel creators and things will still happen and they still come up. And we always come to the conclusion, we talk to the kids after like, well, that was crappy, but look at how we figured it out. Like they are definitely learning a little bit of like, I call it street smart, survival skills. I'm definitely on the street side of life, and my husband's my little academic guy that, you know, did really well in school. And I feel like I was always the savvy street smarts person. So the two of us together, you know, we were supposed to be on Survivor at one time. Somebody was like, you need to be on that. The two of you would be like, you know, or was it the couples? There was some show that it was like a couple had to figure out how to get. Anyway, so that definitely happens in our travels and we have to push through. And I think it's good for the kids to see like us being super frustrated, pulling it together, getting through it. And then we end up on the other side and you wake up the next day going, well, that happened and that was crappy, but today's a new day. That happens so much in our travels. Like, and I feel like some people that aren't used to that, they would go home immediately and go, we can't travel. That was too much. So I feel like travel only challenges you and makes you have to figure things out. For us, it's like kind of fun to figure things out. For others, they would rather not. So, which is more power to that. But there's definitely times when it can be very, very challenging.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to know yourself as a person. Like, okay, what is actually enjoyable for me? Like, what is going to be a fun holiday and what is that going to look like? But then
Absolutely.
I think this situation where you're saying, like, I think situations like that grow you so fast, and specifically your kids watching this play out before them. And it's a challenge because I think you have to kind of find your calm. Like, you have to be like, you know what? We're okay. We're going to figure this out one step at a time. Yeah, that's definitely challenging for you. And I'm sure you have so many stories about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, which one? Pick a time that we've traveled and like, because this is the thing, really. It's like my husband and I, we work so much, but we travel a lot. We don't have time, honestly, to like have all the details figured out for our trips. So like a lot of our trips can be very winging it and like kind of knowing what we're doing. And so like we're not that type A personality that literally has every hour figured out. I idolize those people and I go, wow, I strive to be like that. And I'm like, I swear I want to be like that, but that's honestly not really my personality. I also feel like because I go with the flow so much and I kind of just wing it and figure it out and know that everything's going to be okay. I think that's why we've been able to travel so much, because I don't necessarily need every single detail out. And sometimes it works out beautifully. And we get in situations that we didn't even plan and then ended up being the highlight of our whole entire trip. And then other times it can just like, oh, we should have researched that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, my husband always says his favorite way to travel is spontaneous tourism.
Yeah. I love that. Or one traveler told me like, I just kind of want to let the country show me what it wants to show me. And I'm like,
I know.
I'm going to go with that. Like, and I love that motto. So when something goes bad or doesn't go right, I go, well, that's just not what this country wanted me to know or to see. So it wants to show me this.
And I think
yeah.
I do get overwhelmed by it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have the perfect itinerary. All these people are showing that they have this itinerary. So I like to, that's encouraging to me also that you also don't have it all planned out and you're going with the flow, because sometimes I have imposter syndrome with that too when we're traveling. And
Totally.
I'm like, but I think it's like a good encouragement also for the people who want to travel, but they maybe don't have it all figured out or don't feel like they can figure it all out. Like, you can go and it's still going to be an amazing time. I think sometimes we get the FOMO that we're not going to see what this country has to offer. But I think also if we leave our eyes open, like there's just so much beauty in so many corners of the world.
Oh, no, for sure. For sure. That's what I said. It's been time it's actually benefited us that we didn't have it. And with kids, to be honest, like you can't have that hour by hour figured out. And I think it also helps. My husband and I did so much together that like, we don't need to do it all when we go to a country. Like for us, sometimes now it's coming down to like, we just like to get in a car and like have an idea. A lot of times we don't even know where we're staying the night before. That's how chill it was, especially if it's not busy season. We don't love to book everything. And then now we did this motorhome, the campervan thing in Norway. And that was incredible because you didn't have to have anything planned because they have the right to roam there. So you can kind of camp wherever as long as it's not on private land with your campervan. And I was like, this is our perfect trip. Like you don't have to have every night planned and you can 100% go with the flow as long as you have your campervan and your food and your water. Like, that was definitely our jam this last summer that we did. So yeah.
That's a good insight, I think, for families that are feeling like, oh man, how are we going to do this? We don't know what's going to happen, but that's a great idea. Norway and a campervan. And I love that. That's cool. Yeah. I'm going to bring us back to the benefits of going with kiddos. And I want to know if you have seen specific life skills developed in your kids through any of the trips that you've been on, if they've brought back anything specific.
I get asked quite a bit about the gear that we use while on international trips, especially about our lightweight playpen that we use. We'll bring that into the rock climbing crag or hike it into a beach and really use it for daytime naps anywhere. And so I put together a travel gear list, and I'm really hoping that this doesn't just cover like basic things that you would find on any travel list, but it's unique to the fact that these are specific things that might not be deemed as travel. And they are things that we have used over the last 5 years of traveling with our kids. So I've also included my kids' favorite activities for the plane and for road tripping as well. We have been really enjoying house sitting lately, and so I also put all the details in there. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, it is all linked in the show notes, so you'll find the link there. If you are into making healthy homemade snacks, I wanted to let you know that I have a huge library of homemade muffin recipes. They're all healthy. My goal is to make them nutrient dense with things like fruit, high in protein, whole wheat flour, low in sugar, no dairy. I mean, whatever you're looking for, it's there. The goal is that it won't break the bank and that you can actually find these ingredients, most being in your house. So go to besidethemountain.com/muffins and you'll find all of my recipes. My favorites are the gingerbread pumpkin muffin, the whole wheat apple muffins with banana, and the blender orange muffins. You're going to love them.
I think a big one is the language. Like we spent 2 months in Baja. We've spent some time in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Belize. So the language was a big one, I think was pretty cool to come back with. They also get to study it in school. So being able to use it and understand it and see that it's real and not just their Spanish teacher at school is from Argentina and she's great. But when you're actually in Baja and you're trying to buy fruit from a lady and she doesn't speak any English and the money and everything about it. So that's been a big one for me was taking them there, knowing that they are also actually learning that and being able to talk to their Spanish teacher about it. That's been one of my favorite benefits of it. Kindness too, I would say. The kindness thing I think is huge, realizing that people are from other cultures and other things. Being out here in Hawaii specifically, it is pretty diverse. There's a lot of people from different ethnicities, different countries actually, because Hawaii is very kind of tourist. Then it brings people that want to live here. Like each one of my kids has somebody from another country. I would say half the class is from another country. Their parents originate from another country. So yeah, so they kind of like know it right away. Or like they go to Montessori. And so the little one, he actually gets to do flags at school. He's 5 and he's already drawing the Japan flag. And he wanted to draw the Ireland flag because we just went there. So there's something there.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about speaking Spanish. Did your kids use it talking to other kids, or did you get them to talk to adults?
I would say more like, I mean, they're not fluent or anything at this point. My husband speaks Spanish. So they will it's more reading it, like especially my 9-year-old, he can like now read like in the grocery stores. He knows what that is because he does a lot of the reading of it. I would say way more of the reading it and understanding it than necessarily like speaking it. So they found it fun to know what the stop sign meant, or like, I won't even try to speak Spanish right now. I don't want to botch it, but like apples, what is apples? Manzana. So they loved reading it actually more than like speaking it, because speaking takes a while for the confidence to build. The reading I felt was more something that was more like they could just internalize that better when we were there. So, yeah, that's kind of cool for sure.
I love that. Would you share 1 or 2 unforgettable moments that you've had on your travels with your kids?
So one that's really quick to my mind was in Norway. We took them on a hike that it was, let's just say it was snowy the day before. And then the weather said it was clearing up. So we did the Bessing, I don't want to botch this name, Bessingel hike, which is about 8.6 miles, I believe, 3,000 elevation gain. And there's some pretty good drop-offs and rugged and kind of rock scrambling, if you will. And about 5 miles in, the weather started to change. It's a very popular hike, so there was definitely a lot of people on it, which honestly, I don't mind those with kids, because then I feel like if something were to go wrong, there's at least humans around. And that got really kind of intense really quick because we were all kind of done and the weather was getting very like blowing sideways snow, and the wind started picking up as we're on these like massive kind of cliffs, and we had to rock scramble up. And he was 4 at the time, was not having it. So he was like screaming. And I think as a mom, it was hard because he was looking at me to like carry him up these rocks, and I kind of physically couldn't. My husband had to, but he wanted like that mama moment. And so I had to follow the other 2. Lo and behold, we made it, obviously. It was very intense and probably the hardest hike we had ever done as a family. Coming down from that, oh my God, we were so proud of ourselves. Like one of those family moments of bonding that was so intense that like we all couldn't believe we did it. And to see the boys push through, knowing they could do it, even though they were in a very tense, like feeling in our bodies, like, can we do this? And to push through and do it was, for going from a really awful kind of feeling to like the best feeling of like, it's just crazy. And you can only do that unless you challenge yourself. Like my husband said, he's like, I was never fearful anyone was going to like die. He was like, we were just all very uncomfortable for like a good couple miles of this particular part of the hike. So when he said that to me, I felt like, okay, we got this. Like, so we had to push through. So that ended up being like, I'll never forget that. We still talk about it. We still talk about it. I talk about it with the boys because I could see fear in them. So I like to talk about it with them so they can still process, like, do you see how we were safe? Do you see how we knew like we need to get it done? Can you believe your body like just kept going? And that even when you feel down and you're over it and you're tired, but you push through, like, I hope you are proud of your body. I hope you're proud of yourself for doing that. And thank God we had a couple more hikes after that, and they did the hikes no problem. But even my 4-year-old the next day was like proudly trying to climb this one portion of this hike by himself to be like, see, I can do it. When I was like, oh, thank God he's not traumatized and like would never want to go on a mountain again. So like, it's cool to see them pushing through too. So I think they'll be okay from that. So that was a big one that happened this summer.
I think those moments, like what you said, of like this was stretching and uncomfortable, those are the ones you remember the most. And those are the ones you know the most.
Yes. Yes. No, I mean, I do hair and makeup for weddings. And when I ask people about their wedding, they always tell me the thing that went wrong. They never tell me like the good thing about it. Like, cause I think that's the part that people grow the most. I don't know what it is. And so I'm not to compare weddings to travel, but they always say like the one thing that went wrong instead of like, so like same with travels, people tend to want to focus on that one thing that went wrong. I don't focus on that one thing that went wrong, but I'm actually more like, I was so proud of our family to come together and to get through it and to push through and to know we can do things. And that's ultimately what I want my boys to grow up and be, just super solid and strong and confident and outdoorsy, because I just believe in outdoors so much. But so that was a big one for sure. But yeah.
And I think if you take that moment to turn it around and see how you're proud of the family, or just point that out to them, I think that makes a huge difference, because I think we are as humans prone to look at the negative side of something or the down part of it, but also just being like, wow, we made it through that, or look at how capable you are. And I think that's such an important part to draw that affirmation out of it.
For sure. No, the bonding you get in traveling, and it's usually through the hard moments, like the train and the things and the pushing through, I can't even describe the bonding after it. Like all good feels for sure. Like when we come home from our travels, when they go off to school, it's a very weird feeling. Like I don't know. We're just so used to being together and to figuring it out and to struggling through stuff. And then for them to not be around anymore, they're at school and whatnot, and to be not doing that, it just feels different. It's very interesting.
You guys set it up where you kind of take the school holidays and make them extended. Is that how you do most of your traveling?
Yeah. So they have obviously the summer, and then they have a 3-week winter break, Christmas break. I know that's not normal. Most schools are just 2 weeks. So we have 3 weeks off. And so we kind of extend if we can on either side, if the plane tickets feel right. So that's like a month right there in the middle of the school year that we tend to, you can do a lot in a month for sure. And then we actually have a 2-week spring break. So sometimes we'll do a little couple days off of that too. Like not this year, but the year before that, we went to Western Australia and we extended that for a week. So that was 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks we took in Western Australia. But coming from Hawaii, it's not. Australia is a little bit closer than the mainland US or Canada, but and then of course all summer. So it's kind of a perfect balance right now. Because the summer is so big, and then you can punch in these like mini adventure trips that are still pretty good, to be honest. I'm actually finding after like 3 weeks, I feel like I'm good. That was a good adventure. We had fun. If we had to go home tomorrow, that's okay. So
totally. There's those
if you're somebody that needs balance,
Like
For
we're
sure.
getting ready to go on a 10-week trip and I am like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna miss my humidifier. Like I'm just becoming so like, I'm like, I can't get used to my humidifier. And that's why I
Yeah.
say I'll never buy a king size bed because I'm like, how am I gonna travel? Like so there's just
Yes.
certain things where I'm like, okay, but you really do want to travel, but I'm always ready, like,
Yes.
okay, then I'll go home and use my beautiful stove again, or, my Vitamix.
Yes. Oh, for sure. I think there's very healthy good things to have that balance. And then the good weeks adventure and then the balance. Oh my gosh. Yes. No, I do love coming home. I do get a little bit down when we come home because you're coming off of usually these pretty good, highs of seeing so much and bonding with your kids. But then it's also like nice to get home and you don't have to worry about tomorrow night or where you're eating tonight or the cafe you need to go to tomorrow or where you're going to get coffee if you're like, traveling on the go. But yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
How many countries have you been to with the kids now?
I think my oldest has been to 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
That's so
I
cool.
mean, I would take in the many, many more, but
Yeah.
we'll see what the future holds.
Yes. Well, I'd love to do a little rapid question with you to hear about just because you've done so many countries. I want to ask you a little bit about that.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. What was the country that was the friendliest to your family?
I would say Guatemala.
Guatemala.
Yeah, I love Guatemala is awesome. Yeah, that's also probably going to be in my category of which one surprised me more. If you have
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But yeah,
What part of Guatemala were you in?
we went to Tikal, Antigua, Lake Atigan. Yeah, those and kind of we road tripped into the mountains a little bit. My husband always remembers exactly where we go all the time.
I know my husband too.
But
He's like the
yeah, I'm
encyclopedia.
like, did I even say those names right? I'm always embarrassed by
No,
sometimes by pronunciation of certain places, but
it's
just
not
the
our.
three highlights, the three highlights of Guatemala. It was our, the taste of Guatemala, as you call it, the three places that I would recommend anybody to go. But yeah,
Good. That's kind of why I wanted to ask in case anybody's planning a trip to Guatemala. Just
yeah,
your highlights. Okay.
yeah.
The best cost-effective country for food and accommodation.
I mean, Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Mexico is the food. I mean, let's get serious. The food is so good, particularly Baja. So we spent time. My husband's gone to Baja with his college buddies. They road trip the Baja Peninsula many times. That's one of the reasons why we went. He felt very comfortable. Not everyone
Okay.
feels comfortable road tripping the entire Baja Peninsula with 3 little kids, but we went over Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of that. It was kind of the winter time that year. That was the year we were homeschooling them. So we could do that. But the food in Mexico is just so good if you like Mexican. And then obviously the accommodations are, pretty nice for what you're getting
I love
or
that.
how much you're paying for. Yeah.
What country surprised you?
Well, I mean, maybe I'll say Finland because we just got back from there and I loved everything about it. I don't know why. The winter wonderland, the cold was cold, but I liked that they still have this sense of culture there. Like we got to see the reindeer and the huskies, and we got to see them do the ice fishing, and we went ice skating with this gentleman that he's Finnish and took us onto this like area, this lake, this frozen lake, obviously, and just kind of what they do for fun out there in the wilderness kind of vibes out there was pretty. Can I say badass? Like pretty rad. It was pretty rad to see these kind of like these people that they have to live in these conditions that are just very cold and very dark. And then the Northern Lights is incredible. And we also booked this house that didn't have running water. It was this cabin and they had their sauna that they've had for generations. And then they cut a hole in the lake right in front of their house that they do their cold water plunge in. And she's just like, this is just what we do. This is normal. This is life. So I felt like we did a lot of good, like culture experiences there. And the people were so lovely. And the food, the salmon soup is so good. Incredible food. So I knew it was going to be good, but I definitely walked away from it like I didn't want to leave. And that was really incredible.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Finland.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you live in the cold. I don't, so I'm always blown away by kind of going to the cold when we can. I actually really enjoy it. I'm 42% Norwegian, and there's some Swedish in there too. So maybe I'm just going back to my roots. I don't know.
I love that. I do hear a lot of people though that travel the world, they end up in those Scandinavian countries. Like they plant themselves there. And I do think that there's
Yeah,
something with the traditions that are passed on. Like that's why I want to go, and I would love to spend a whole summer. That's on my
totally,
bucket list. And I just
for
think it's
sure.
so beautiful that they pass down those traditions so well.
Yeah, I think they do a good job. Like, I'm kind of like, dang it, family, why did we move away from here? This place is so amazing. My mom's grandparents were 100% Norwegian, and then my dad's grandma was 100% Swedish. So that's why I was really intrigued with going there. But they keep their culture very much alive out there. Their food, their knitting, their way of life. It's amazing to see, especially coming from like California, where it's so many different cultures, and it's cool to see and be raised in that. But it's also like, where did we come from? So for me, it was really cool to go back to the Scandinavian area and see them still living with their cultures and what they, all the things that they do out there. It's awesome for sure.
What's your kids' favorite country that they've traveled to?
They would probably say, I almost want to say like Baja, just because of the surfing. So they surf, and
Okay.
yeah, so they kind of talk about this one Cerritos Beach outside of Cabo. They just had a really good time there because the waves were so good. So they'll talk about that place a lot. Maybe the surfing, because they also talk about surfing in Norway and wanting to go back to go surf in Norway. I think the ocean, maybe it's a sense of home because we live in Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
So when we're traveling and there's waves, they probably feel a sense of home and comfort, maybe. Yeah.
I
So
love it. I would ask you more, but we'll have to save this for another time.
yeah,
We go
for
on for
sure.
hours talking about traveling.
Yeah, no, for sure. I could.
But I want to ask you a personal one now. Where is your favorite place that you've been to with your kids? Maybe not even like maybe it's really specific, like an exact place that you've been to with your kids.
Lucky Bay, Western Australia. That's the place with like the crystal blue water with the kangaroos on the beach. I just love the like raw land out there, and like you can drive your car up onto it. So as a mom, you have everything you need. And we had a pop-up tent, so they could sleep in there. I could cook for them. I had like cooking stuff out the back of the truck. And there was nobody but us on the beach. I have a picture framed in my house because it was just one of the most magical days. And then there's like these wild kangaroos. So we love wildlife. Anytime we can incorporate wildlife into our trip, is huge bonus. So I keep telling my husband, we got to go back there and stay for like 2 weeks. Like that was just not enough time when we were there. So that's one of my favorite places in the world for sure with them. Yeah.
I love that. That's so beautiful. I really
Yeah.
would love to do a long, long road trip in Australia too.
Australia.
Like, whew, yeah.
No.
Now you're getting me itching for that. Okay.
I know, right? I'm sure you could tell me places you've been, and I'd be like, ooh,
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, as
yeah.
we close out, I always ask everyone, what encouragement do you have for moms or other families who want to explore or travel more?
Of course, just kind of like I did with my little guy, is start small, see what you're comfortable with. I had one girlfriend reach out to me and was like, I don't know how you do it. We can't even go to the forest here in Hawaii for the day without my kids fighting. How do you do it? And I'm like, my kids fight on trips. Just because you're on a trip doesn't mean it's going to be a perfect day by all
Uh-huh.
means. But, I'd rather them be fighting in the forest in Norway than at home in my house. Give yourself that grace and know that it wasn't just because you were traveling that your kid's fighting or or somebody had a meltdown. They do that at home too. So I would say start small. National parks are one of my favorite. There's anybody can drive to a national park or get to one pretty easily. At least in the U.S., they're everywhere. Those are always a really good one to start with. And then kind of your comfort. If you're not a camper, try a nice cabin. Camping's just great to save money, but and to kind of, you got to love camping. I feel like if you don't love camping, then that'd be kind of hard. But cabins and stuff are great to start at. Just start small and then expand as you can. You know, do a plane ride that's maybe an hour away and then see how that goes. And if it doesn't go fantastic, don't be afraid to try again.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I love that. So many tidbits in there, Heather. I love that.
I hope so.
Aw.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you, follow along, see all your travels? I know, the travels that you just talked about. Sorry, I feel like you just briefly need to tell us about the trip that you just went on.
Yeah, well, that we just did an around the world winter trip. We went to Japan and then Ireland and Finland and Estonia. So it was actually around the world. And so you can find right now, we're home, but I am still posting about Finland currently, if you're listening right now, but you can look on our highlights and our stories. So that's at Go Outside and Explore on Instagram. I'm technically on TikTok, but I haven't posted much there. So you can find way more on Instagram. And we also have a website, and I hope to do much more blogging this year. So more to come with this journey of kind of sharing more and more of our travels and our itineraries and our tips. And I'm just going to put more and more out this year. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to you for listening along today. You are what makes this a community and why we even have these chats and why I share them with the community. I am so inspired by Heather, and I now just want to get on a plane and go to Western Australia and camp on the beach. Wow, I'm so excited about that. We'll see if I can make that happen one day. If you're a family that also loves to travel or that wants to get into it, I know that Heather would love to hear from you. Like myself, she shares a lot of her family's trips and adventures and what's going on, and sometimes we don't really know who's listening or who's behind there, and so it truly makes our day if you just take a second to be like, you know what, I heard your podcast, that was so awesome, or I love this part of it. And so if you get a second to do that, I know that she would appreciate that. Like always, I tried to list all of the places that she mentioned in the show notes if you're interested in that. And I want to let you know that we have a Facebook group that's completely free of just moms connecting, chatting about places that they want to go to or asking questions about the gear that they're interested in purchasing. So come on over to that. The link is also in the show notes, and we will catch you again. All episodes are released on the first and the third Tuesday of each month. Okay, have an incredible day.